Welcome back. Before we went into a break, we were discussing the budget expectations for the agriculture sector. Sohanlal Commodity Management, which offers warehousing services for agriculture commodities, is seeking certain tax exemptions for players like itself who add value to the agriculture supply chain. Joining me now to discuss their expectations is the group CEO, Sandeep Sabharwal. Sandeep, hi, good to have you. And there's just so much that the agriculture wants, hopes for, and is including in its wish list as well. But I'll start with the warehousing industry itself. And what is it that you would want from the finance minister this time?
So, good afternoon, Manisha. I think one of our wish lists, which has been neglected for the past 4 years, is the rationalization of GST. I don't know whether it becomes a part of the budget or not. But on a larger purview, what we are saying is that when players like us provide warehousing services, which is a pillar to food security, and when we are providing these services out of leased warehouses, the lease that we take on ground are treated as commercial leases, which mean that they are subjected to 18% GST. Whereas when we give out our services on top of those warehouses, our agri-product services are GST devoid. So what it means is that 18% of that cost gets levied onto my customer. Now, on a financial number, please understand this 18% actually translates into 13% inflation. How? Because 70% of the warehousing cost goes towards lease rentals itself. So I think one of our biggest wish list has been the rationalization of warehouses, where warehouses are being used for agri-produce storage and agri-produce throughput. These GST should actually be exempted from it. And that's one important way on the warehousing part. But having said so, I think there are a lot of other wish lists that we have on the whole agri sector. And I think I would want to add to this is that it's high time that the government understands that agri is the unsung hero. Whether it was COVID or post-COVID, agri has been showing a consistent 3 to 3.5% growth on a very large base in India. I know India is very well placed in the macro food environment, despite the Ukraine-Russia war, despite the inflation across the world. If you look at advanced estimates, our agri crops are doing very well. Having said so, it is very, very important that the government looks at inclusiveness towards private sector in agri. I know in the previous half hour of your show, you were talking about allocations and larger allocations being made. The question is not only about allocations, the question is the inclusiveness of those allocations to private sector. And I think that's where our second demand comes in, is that if you look at agri storage and agri financing, they go hand in hand. There is no financing without storage, and there is no storage without financing, especially in a country like India, which is a two-crop cycle country. So having said so, it is very, very important that the agri credit inclusiveness, specifically to NBFCs like us, which are providing last mile credibility and last mile credit to farmers and FPOs, etc. Why are we being excluded? When government is allocating large funds to NABARD, and NABARD is then given those funds at 6% and NABARD actually uses those funds to leverage its balance sheet and then does forward lending. Why is that same not given to private sector players itself, which have proven themselves, which have substantial balance sheets on agri side, and yet they are being devoid of these funds? Which is, I think, a very fair demand from our end, because at the end of the day, we are regulated by RBI, we are regulated by all government entities ourselves. So it's very important that this inclusiveness is brought, and we are brought at par with institutions like that.
Oh, absolutely. So that's about warehousing and agriculture credit, and that's a wish list coming in on both of those sides from Sandeep here. But Sandeep, the other area clearly is about value addition when it comes to many of these commodities. And the second part also is about the export of many of these agri-produce. What is it that you think the finance minister would look at when you look at these areas?
So if you talk about value addition, Manisha, it's very important for us to understand the entire agri value chain. Frankly speaking, if I look at value addition in pulses or in meat products, a lot of these value additions actually should culminate into higher prices for the intermediary who's doing that value addition, which means that for him, the ROE and for him to run his sector in value addition, whether it is packed houses, whether it is flour millers, whether it is pulses millers, that should happen. And that can only happen if, export of the products and the inclusiveness of the food basket of the world is set with the Indian context. Now, this is where it becomes a problem. Now, India, if I look at the protein deficiency of India, over the past 15 years, we have always been a protein deficient country from a vegetarian perspective. And yet we have always been dependent upon imports of pulses, whether it is from Africa, whether it is from Myanmar, whether it is from Australia. Now, on the other hand, when we see that there is, like, for example, last year, if you see, where the wheat prices have gone skyrocketed across the world, it was an immense shining opportunity for India to actually step out and start exporting value-added products. But then at the last moment, we see a lot of restrictions coming in. And those restrictions, albeit I'm not here to discuss whether the restrictions are right or wrong. I'm only here to discuss that whether the timing of those restrictions should be more strategically thought about. It should be more planned. We have enough evidence on board now, wherein we are aware how prices definitely move. We are aware on the production capability of India. We are also aware on the buffer stocks. India is sufficient. It has sufficient buffer stocks on wheat. In fact, where the new advanced estimates will be above our buffer stocks in April.
Right.
So what does that mean? Does it mean that we should do a blanket export ban, or is it an idea that we should allow exports to happen on certain value-added products, but with a margin line or with a budget baseline which says that below this you are not allowed to export? So instead of actually blanketly saying that no exports, blanketly saying no, you will not be allowed to market your produce, I think it's a high time the Indian government starts deciding this, that let's put some buffer timelines, buffer pricing into place, and let larger exports go across, because that's how value addition is going to happen. That is how ROE is going to become bigger in the sector.
Clearly.
And that is where, if you look at why I said that India agriculture has been a shining star, is that this is one agriculture sector which is employing 60% of the population of India, yet only contributing 19.9% to our GDP. So it is very, very important that we set expectations correct. We also set our targets correctly.
All right. Oh, well, absolutely. And we are hoping that this budget perhaps sorts all of that, because this is also seen as a budget which is a full budget ahead of elections next year. The next budget perhaps could be a more limited one. But my final question to you, Sandeep, is about modernization. And that is something that almost everybody seems to be talking about, on whether it's about awareness. I mean, we do understand that the information now is part and parcel. All farmers do get that. And there's a lot that is done by the way of digitization, whether it's opening of accounts or passing out information. But the whole Internet of Things and the drone part, and I was talking to Anand about that as well. How much of that is available for the farmer? Where is the funding coming in from? And how soon that can be a reality?
So it's already a reality. People like us have been using this for the past 7 years. It's nothing new. Only thing is that it's become the buzzword now because of the funding that we saw from private equity players coming in the last 2 to 3 years in this sector. Now, having putting this into a context, I would like to bring on the table is the fact that, is this sector or is the technology aligned with the sectoral evidences on the ground? The answer is somewhat yes and no. You see, India, we'd love to do drones, we'd love to have more inclusiveness on the ground, but at the same time, the scale of inclusiveness is not there. The farmers are not readily, willingly including themselves from and actually diving into the entire agri ecosystem and saying, I am going to use this IoT or I am going to use this entire technology for my benefit. Most of what we are seeing right now is an adaptation in terms of more information processing, not on commercial basis.
Okay.
And that is one of the reasons which brings the question of scalability to such projects. Why I say that is that despite the fact that India used to have 7,557 APMC market yards, 1,000 are still functional. Now, having put that into perspective, what is more important is that all these IoTs and all these startups and all people, including us, put together, we're still not contributing of more than 5% of the agri input-output services in this country. So automatically, technology itself is not, just the answer. I think the implementation of technology on the ground, along with the reality of Indian agriculture sector, is what should be the way forward.
Oh, yes. So, well, lots of opportunities there, and there are some concerns and a big wish list as well coming in from the agriculture sector, and hoping that the finance minister does listen to that at this point in time. Thank you so much, Sandeep, for joining us with all of that wish list. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Markets, Commodity Champions. Thank you for watching.